Are you planning to visit Salt Lake City? If so, you're in the right video. Hi, I'm Michael. I just spent the last 12 weeks visiting Salt Lake for work, and I want to share with you my picks for places to stay, eat, and things to do while you're in the greater downtown Salt Lake City area. Thanks for joining. There's so many reasons to visit Salt Lake City, from the outdoor activities of the mountains to the LDS Church and the University of Utah. I commuted here weekly on business travel and stayed at 3 different hotels and ate at some really good and some really not so good restaurants during my stay. Let me know down in the comments if you have tips to add on to mine. When you arrive in Salt Lake by air, you'll land into the brand new terminals at SLC Airport. This beautiful new airport replaced a decades-old terminal when it opened in 2020. People really like to complain on social media about how much walking there is to get around the building, but honestly, it's not that bad. It's a good walk to get your daily steps in. However, there are shuttle carts for anyone who needs assistance traversing between gates. The airport is a hub for Delta, but most major airlines fly here, like Alaska, American, JetBlue, Southwest, and United. The consolidated rental car facility is conveniently located just beyond the baggage claim area, and the airport is just a short 10-minute drive to downtown via the I-80 freeway. You may be wondering how to get around. I rented a car on my trip since my work, places to eat, and after-work exploring activities I wanted to do were not walkable to each other. That said, the downtown core is walkable, and there is a light rail train that goes from the airport to downtown. The train is also convenient to get to the University of Utah and some of the suburbs. Parking downtown will have an additional cost, and driving honestly is most likely your best bet, especially if you plan on going to the mountains. Most of the hotels are located near the Central Business District. I stayed at the Sheraton, the Marriott City Center, and the Le Méridien hotels during my time in Salt Lake City. There are seemingly dozens of Marriott brand locations within the downtown, with fewer Hilton and other chains represented. The Méridien is a brand new property on the edge of downtown near the convention center. The hotel shares a building with the extended stay brand Element, which means some of the amenities like the pool and the gym are not restricted just for Méridien hotel guests, since they're shared with the guests of the Element. The property is a bit more expensive than the nearby properties without glaring amenities to show the value for it. For instance, there's not a concierge lounge for those with high enough Marriott status. Instead, you're offered breakfast or points. And although the rooms are well appointed, they're a bit small. My one complaint is the dining situation. My experience with the hotel restaurant was a bit frustrating because you had to make advanced reservations, and even hotel guests can't just walk up for a seat. The lobby restaurant was the same way. When I checked, you could not make same-day reservations. But it's fine because there's other places to eat in Salt Lake. From a sleep quality and furnishing perspective, if you can get a room here, I'd recommend it. The Marriott City Center is one of 2 brand name Marriott properties in downtown, and it's easy to get them confused. The Marriott City Center is a few blocks away from the Marriott City Creek, which is attached to the City Creek Mall and is a very different property. The City Center Marriott is an older property with rooms that appear to have been renovated sometime in the last 10 years. The concierge lounge is on the ground floor in a space that looks to have once been a coffee shop. Despite the unusual appearance, the Marriott eggs were on point and the nightly dessert brownies were perfect. I didn't particularly like the coffee in the lounge, but that I think is pretty common for most Marriott properties. I love the eggs, the bacon's usually good, the sausage is good, the coffee maybe not so much. I'd also say that the room service food that I had at this property was really good too. I ordered the room service on a couple different occasions and got the tomato soup, the chicken Caesar salad, and the pizza. The tomato soup is some of the best tomato soup I've ever had. The coffee that comes with the room service is much better than the coffee in the lounge. I don't know why the coffees are different, but the room service coffee was really good and it came in this thermos. But then the coffee from the lounge was different. I don't know. There's a restaurant on the ground floor and a lobby bar which have first come, first served seating. The restaurant has a breakfast to go counter in addition to the dining room, which has decent coffee, which was probably the same coffee that comes with the room service. It was fine. The parking felt a little chaotic, but overall this is a safe bet option hotel. There were a couple conferences going on during the time I was staying here, so it did feel a little bit crowded, but overall the gym is nice, the pool was nice, the overall amenities were great. This is certainly a safe bet option. The Sheraton was probably my least favorite of the 3 hotels I stayed in, and I think that's because it felt the oldest, it was probably the oldest, and was the furthest from the central business district. The major pro for this property is that there's a real Starbucks located right off the lobby, and there's also a drive-through Starbucks about a block away. The room was pretty big, but it just seemed very dark. I don't know, the hallway felt dark, the room felt dark, even with all the lights on it, it felt very dim and dark. In the summer, there's an outdoor pool that's open. I was here in the winter, so I wasn't able to use it. One of the other drawbacks of this property is that there's no covered parking. It's all a surface parking lot. And so parking above ground in the winter meant that I needed to budget extra time to warm up the rental car and brush off snow and scrape the windshield, which thankfully the rental car came with the brush. If it hadn't, then that would have been a little nasty surprise since I live in LA and haven't been used to scraping snow or ice off my car since I lived on the East Coast. The closest restaurant to the property besides the McDonald's is an Italian spot that my client recommended called Cafe Malise, so more on Cafe Malise later. There are a few other decent looking properties downtown that I didn't get to stay at, like the Hyatt, the AC Hotel, and the Kimpton. Those all looked really nice. Check those out if you're interested, but these 3 hotels, they were good. The Meridian was probably the nicest of them. The Marriott City Center was definitely the most reliable. I stayed at that one the most. And then there was the Sheraton, which I just stayed at one time. All right, on to the food. I feel like I ate at every restaurant in Salt Lake for either a lunch or a dinner while I was on my business trips. I was there for 12 weeks, Sunday night to Thursday night, and that was a lot of meals that I had to eat out. So I put together a list here of restaurants. I want to highlight 3 in particular, along with a variety of other great restaurants that are in no particular order. But the first one I want to highlight is Copper Onion. So Copper Onion was right around the corner from the Marriott City Center downtown. This was one of the most recommended places that I went to, and I ate here 3 times. The first 3 times were really great, but the last time could have been better. The drinks were great, as were the appetizers, and the food, definitely a popular pick. Make a reservation. All right, the second one I want to highlight is called HSL. I went here twice with my work colleagues. The menu is small and changes from time to time, and the bartender will make you a custom surprise drink if you want. I just really liked this one all the way around and would definitely recommend. The third one that I want to highlight is a place called Maza. This was one of the most fun meals I had in Salt Lake. It's a Mediterranean cuisine in an intimate space. There are only like 8 or 9 tables. We didn't have a reservation, and we were actually kind of lucky to get a table after waiting for about an hour at a wine bar across the street. We ordered tons of food, my work colleagues and I, and we shared small plates, had a couple entrees, and finished with a delicious Turkish coffee. Now for the honorable mentions, these were places that were either recommended by locals or places that we just happened to stumble upon while researching places to eat. And I liked all these. These were all great in their own way. It's a variety of Italian, of American, some Japanese. So pause the video and jot down all the names. I'll wait. And now that you have all of my recommendations for sit-down dining in Greater Salt Lake, I now have a bonus for you. If you find yourself heading over to Park City, I'd recommend getting a reservation for the fine dining experience at River Horse on Main Street. This was a lovely fine dining experience, which included a tasty salmon amuse-bouche, focaccia bread, followed by a great steak entree course. They had quite a selection of seafood, which I'm sure is all really great, but the vibe of the restaurant and the decor really gives off mountain steakhouse, so I wanted to stick to steak for this meal. This was one of my favorite meals in Utah and was absolutely worth the 35-minute drive to Park City from Salt Lake. So if you end up in Park City, definitely try to get a reservation here. We booked our reservation about a week ahead to get a kind of a late dinner time. Most of the good times are already taken, so you probably would need to book a bit further ahead, especially in peak ski season. All right, now that you have a place to stay, you have a list of places that you'd want to eat at. If you find yourself with some available time in your itinerary, consider these recommendations as some things that you could do. There are a number of hiking trails around Greater Salt Lake that are really easily accessible from the city. I climbed Ensign Peak, which is about a mile up behind the state capitol building and has a summit view of the whole valley, the Great Salt Lake, and the city. Absolutely beautiful. There are also several LDS Church historical sites around the valley that you can visit. Or you could stop by the Red Butte Gardens, which are near the University of Utah campus. That's a large botanical garden that has concerts in the summer. I think those are all really nice outdoorsy things to do right in and around downtown. The drive out to Park City is only about 30 minutes and has some really pretty scenery. The downtown is quaint and has tons of shops, most of which close early, so plan accordingly. This is a ski resort, so there's tons of ski lifts, places to après ski. But even in the summer, there's tons of outdoor activities to do, like hiking and mountain biking. This is just one of the many ski resorts, but it's probably the biggest one and most well-known. You could also spend some time in Salt Lake shopping. The City Creek Mall downtown is nice and new and has all the high-end stores that you would want, like a Nordstrom, a Lululemon, and an Apple. The mall is closed on Sunday, as are most things in Utah, so make sure you take that into consideration. You could also check out some of the neighborhoods like 9th and 9th, which have several cute stores like this very eclectic ice cream shop. This street is punctuated by this life-size replica of a breaching whale at the end of the street, so that was pretty unique. But yeah, this was a fun kind of vibe neighborhood. Really liked 9th and 9th. So you may remember that Salt Lake City hosted the Winter Olympics back in 2002, which is, it's really hard to believe that that was 21 years ago, but that is the case. Anyway, many of the venues and tributes to the games are still here. Rice-Eccles Stadium, which is the University of Utah football stadium, hosted the opening and closing ceremonies back in 2002, and just outside the entrance to this stadium is a plaza dedicated to the Olympic Cauldron. This glass and steel structure was lit by the gold medal winning 1980 U.S. men's hockey team to open the games and is 72 feet tall. Around the base of the cauldron are photos and plaques honoring the athletes, the volunteers, and the community that came together to put on these games. In Park City, you can visit the Utah Olympic Park, where the ski jump, bobsleigh, skeleton, and luge competitions were held. A museum showcases photos, uniforms, props, and equipment from the 2002 games, and it's free to visit. The weather in Salt Lake is a bit temperamental. In the winter, it seems like there's always a chance for snow. Even in mid to late April, it was still snowing quite a bit this year. Spring doesn't last very long, and summer warm temperatures and thunderstorms come rolling in real quick in May and last all the way through the fall. So make sure that you're checking the forecast before you go. You could expect snow, you could expect heat, especially if you're going on a shoulder season. I hope this guide's helpful and gave you some ideas for food, lodging, and things to do in and around the downtown area of Salt Lake. Again, please leave some comments down below if there are things that you'd also like to add on to these recommendations or any questions that you have. Happy to answer. But subscribe to my channel for more city guides and hotel reviews, and check out one of these recommended videos popping up next.